Coming up on Talking Points, Ukraine and Russia are set to meet for a fresh round of talks. Could this be the end of bloodshed in the country? We'll have more next.
Plus, we have the latest on the upcoming confirmation vote for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Find out which on-the-fence senator said he would vote for her.
And County Executive J. Ryan McMahon delivers his State of the County address. Find out his plans for Onondaga County post-pandemic. Talking Points starts right now. One month and 4 days. That's how long it's been since Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine. Welcome into Talking Points. I'm Moriah Humiston.
And I'm Teagan Brown. The two countries are set to meet in Turkey for another round of talks. With more on the ongoing situation, we send it over to Talking Points breaking news analyst Chilekasi Adele. Chilekasi?
Teagan, Moriah, good evening. We now stand at 33 days since this conflict began back in late February 24th to be exact, when Russian forces first entered the country of Ukraine. Since then, here are some of the numbers that we've been seeing in terms of what has been happening. So there are 160,000 people currently trapped in the port city of Mariupol, which, by the way, is besieged. There is no power, and the mayor of Mariupol says that the city needs to be evacuated. Now, again, this is in the southeastern part of Ukraine, and those trapped there, they lack food, they're lacking water, they're lacking medicine, basic necessities. That's according to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that 2,000 children in the city of Mariupol have been taken by Russia, and he says that currently the location of these children are unknown. He says that they've been abducted by Russian forces. Now, the UN Human Rights Office says that 1,119 civilians have been killed in this conflict to date. That includes 15 girls, 32 boys, and 52 children whose sex is currently unidentified. The UN says these figures may be a little bit on the lower side right now and that they're expected to be higher, but of course some things have to be corroborated over the course of time. Some death reports may be delayed, or you may have cities like Mariupol that are under siege right now, so it's hard to get those numbers. Over the weekend, we had 2 people detained in the city of Lviv. They were accused of suspicion of sharing information with Russian forces, and on top of that, Lviv was also hit with at least 2 sets of missile strikes. One strike caused a fire at the fuel depot, and 5 people, as you can see on the screen, were reportedly injured. There were also some strikes in the city of Kyiv as well. And finally, a regional administrator in the city of Kharkiv says that a number of villages in the region were taken by Ukrainian forces. A number of settlements near the city of Sumy have also been liberated by Ukrainian forces. Northwest of Mariupol, 2 villages were also liberated from Russian forces by Ukraine.
And so, Chilekasi, when and where can we expect these next talks to be held? And specifically, what can we expect from this meeting?
So, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Vladimir Putin agreed that talks would be held in Istanbul, Turkey. That is where these talks are set to happen starting tomorrow and going on for the next few days. Now, Erdogan and Putin held a call discussing, quote, the latest situation in regards to the war the other day. The Turkish presidency readout that they released, they said that Erdogan underlined the necessity of establishing a ceasefire. And a statement also says that Erdogan wants to help improve the humanitarian situation in the region right now. Now, the readout says, quote, Turkey will continue to contribute in every possible way during this process, end quote. That is a statement, of course, again, from the Turkish government. Zelensky, on the other hand, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that peace and the restoration of normal life are the goals in these next rounds of talks with Russia. And he told Russian journalists on a call yesterday that he's ready to accept a neutral status as part of a peace deal.
And now, Chilekasi, over the weekend, there have been reports that there's a possibility of a referendum with regards to at least one of these Russian-backed countries. What are the details behind that? So
we've heard the head of the pro-Russian separatist group controlling part of the Luhansk region in Ukraine saying that he wants a referendum to be held on whether to decide on whether to join Russia or remain in Ukraine. Now, Some lawmakers in the Russian House and the lower house have been split. Some say that this is a good idea. Others say maybe this is not the right time for that. Now, there's a statement from the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. It says, quote, "Fake referendums in the occupied parts of Ukraine are null and void. No country in the world will ever recognize the forceful change of Ukraine's internationally recognized borders." And that's an end quote there. Now, it's important to know that right now, Russia's defense ministry says that Russian-backed separatists now have gained control of about 93% of that region of Luhansk.
Chilekasi, Adele, thank you. President Biden recently completed a trip all across Europe in which he met with many NATO leaders. Here to break down the trip is Talking Point's White House analyst Jacob Goldberg.
Thanks, guys. President Biden is back in Washington after traveling across Europe for the past few days. Biden started in Brussels, where he had one goal: to unify NATO, the EU, and the G7. The U.S. and other allies announced additional sanctions on more than 400 Russian oligarchs and entities. The country also discussed efforts to prevent the Russian central bank from using gold to support its economy. Now, President Biden also said that sustained pressure against Russia will eventually lead to the end of the war in Ukraine. He said, quote, "But we have to demonstrate the reason I asked for the meeting. We have to stay fully, totally, and thoroughly united." Another reason for the president's travel was giving a speech in the Polish capital of Warsaw and visiting U.S. troops on the Ukrainian border. Biden announced his plans to pledge an additional $1 billion in global aid to Poland for their help with Ukrainian refugees. He also stressed in his speech that Europe must remain patient and said this.
In this battle, we need to be clear-eyed. This battle will not be won in days or months either. We need to steel ourselves for the long fight ahead. Mr. President.
Although most of Biden's trip across Europe was carefully planned out, it was an unscripted moment that caught media attention. During his speech, Biden ad-libbed, saying, quote, "This man can't stay in power." This suggests that Biden is hoping for a regime change in Russia, something the Kremlin says the U.S. has been planning for a while.
And Jacob Goldberg joins us at the desk now. So, Jacob, President Biden did not meet directly with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. How has Zelensky reacted to this?
Well, Zelensky hasn't said anything explicitly about Biden's trip to Europe, but he has called out some EU leaders for not doing enough in the efforts with Ukraine in regards to their fight against Russia. He's angry over a lack of a no-fly zone in Ukraine, something that a lot of NATO leaders have not given credit to. And he also tells countries such as Hungary to pick a side in the battle. There's a lot of countries that are playing the neutral stance, and Zelensky is angry about this, telling them that they basically have to pick a side, and asking for more tanks, planes, and other weaponry from his allies.
Now, Jacob, help us break down the end of Biden's speech and the comments that he made specifically about Putin and what this is specifically going to have to do with Russia, or with Europe, sorry.
Well, him saying he can't stay in power is going to be pretty big. He said, quote, he was expressing his outrage and was not asking for a change in power. Although he did say he is not going to take back any of his comments. So an interesting talk by Biden earlier today. And, he has recently amped up his speech against Putin in the last few weeks, calling him a war criminal and now calling him a butcher when he went to the Polish border. So there's a lot that Biden has been saying about Putin that has been negative recently. So this just adds to that.
And Jacob Goldberg, thank you so much for the constant updates on Russia and Ukraine. Coming up after the break, the Senate wraps up confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. We'll have the latest details on the other side.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
I guess I have really been looking for love in this dating app. Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to Talking Points. The confirmation hearing for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court is over. The Senate Judiciary Committee will vote on her confirmation on April 4th. If Judge Jackson's confirmed in committee, the vote will then go to the entire Senate. Talking Points analyst Julianna Distante is here to tell us how the vote is likely to go. Julianna?
Thanks, guys. Following her nomination to the Supreme Court by President Joe Biden, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson sat in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and underwent questioning in her confirmation hearings. If confirmed, Judge Jackson would be the first African-American woman to sit on the Supreme Court. Republicans asked the judge a variety of questions, including to provide a definition on the word woman, comment on a children's book, and rate her religiousness. Most Democrats used their time to praise the judge for her experience and qualifications. This includes that she would be the second judge to sit on the Supreme Court next to Justice Sotomayor, who have sat as a judge on district courts. Republican Senators Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz argued over Chair Democrat Senator Dick Durbin over their questioning. Judge Jackson's rulings on child pornography cases proved to be the hottest topic for Republicans when questioning her qualifications, claiming she went easy on sentencing child porn offenders.
And so Julianna Distante joins us now. Julianna, what was the line of questioning from Democrats and Republicans on the committee?
Thanks, Moriah. There was very, very different questioning when it came to Democrats and Republicans on the committee. Democrats chose to use their time to highlight the historic nomination and her accomplishments and experiences, while Republicans got right down to questioning. Republican Senator Josh Hawley in specific was very apparent to make sure that it was important to adjust the judge's previous rulings when it comes to child pornography cases, saying that there were light sentences. But the interesting thing is that Senator Hawley then realized that there were judges that he'd agreed with in the past and even passed through on the Senate Judiciary Committee with flying colors that they voted in support with Judge Jackson on some of these child pornography cases, which is extremely interesting to look at.
So right now we're seeing some of these senators a little bit on the fence. Which way are those senators leaning?
So namely, Senator Joe Manchin is a key player to look at when it comes down to it. It's a very split Senate. It's very, very close, and he has spoken saying that he will vote for the confirmation of Judge Jackson, and that will be something he's proud to vote for based on her accomplishments and qualifications.
And so does it appear likely that Judge Jackson will be confirmed to the Supreme Court?
That's right, Moriah. So when we take a look at this breakdown and the breakdown of Republicans and Democrats, it's likely that the majority of senators are going to vote on party lines, which is going to be interesting to see if this sticks true and if Joe Manchin will, at the end of the day, vote in favor of her confirmation.
All right, Julianna Distante, thank you. Now on to the latest on the January 6th committee investigation. The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas sent text messages to then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows.
Virginia Thomas allegedly pressed Meadows to overturn the 2020 election. 29 text messages were sent between the 2020 presidential election and the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Here to explain how the January 6th committee could respond to this latest development is our Talking Points congressional analyst Dominic Chiappone. Now, Dominic, can you describe the content of the text between Virginia Meadows and, Mark Meadows? Virginia Thomas and Mark Meadows.
Absolutely. So during the January 6th investigation, former Chief of Staff to the Trump administration, Mark Meadows, sent over 9,000 documents, and within those documents included 29 text messages, 28 of which were sent in early November, right after the election. We actually have a couple of those examples on your screen right now. The first, directly from Virginia Thomas, says, quote, "Release the Kraken and save us from the left taking America down." And then the second quote says, quote, "We just caved to people wanting Biden to be anointed. Many of us can't continue the GOP charade. Again, all these text messages were sent, especially during that November 4th to like November 11th period, right after the election, the 24th. A key part in this, though, is that number one, all of these texts are pretty significant because they're showing that the wife of Clarence Thomas is definitely not in favor of the election itself. But Judge Thomas himself is significant because he was the only Supreme Court judge on the bench that did not vote voted against the release of records for the Trump administration that related to January 6th. When you combine all of this context, there is a lot to definitely unpack.
So Dominic, we learned earlier today that Senate Judiciary Chair Dick Durbin is actually calling on Justice Thomas to rescue himself from these comments that were being made. How is Congress responding to this?
So what Senator Durbin is basically saying is that there's a serious question regarding the conflict of interest between Clarence Thomas and then, of course, his wife, Virginia Thomas. A key point he is making is that because Virginia Thomas made frequent contact with Mark Meadows with those 29 messages, if there was a hypothetical litigation effort, that Clarence Thomas should have the right to excuse himself in the event that this happens to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Democrats, regardless of what happens here, are looking for a bipartisan effort, and Nancy Pelosi, the representative from California, has constantly said throughout the January 6th committee that the time for Republicans to hold those responsible and hold those accountable for January 6th is now. Here's what she had to say.
Our country needs a strong Republican Party. They've made great contributions to our country. I say this to Republicans all the time. Take back your party from this cult.
Now, Dominic, a judge ruled that former President Donald Trump likely obstructed, and he is being ordered to give papers over to the January 6th investigation. Is there any word from them on this?
As of now from Congress, no, but what there is are certain options that they can do as a result of this. Number one is that, just for the record, they cannot prosecute President Trump directly. As part of the Constitution and what they are able to do, they cannot create any sort of prosecution effort. What they can do, though, is first refer this to the Department of Justice, specifically Attorney General Merrick Garland, or they can recommend to the Department of Justice that a criminal proceeding should happen. But again, Congress specifically cannot create a trial of their own.
Dominic Chiappone, thank you so much. Coming up after the break, J. Ryan McMahon delivers the State of the County address. We'll have the details on his plans for Onondaga County next.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Welcome back to Talking Points. On Wednesday, Onondaga County Executive J. Ryan McMahon gave his State of the County address. McMahon announced his plan for the county after the pandemic. Talking Points Syracuse analyst Tyler O'Neill is here to break down some of the key points from the speech. Tyler, so McMahon's aquarium has been a point of controversy to many. Does he still have the support to the original idea for it to happen?
Yes, so McMahon said that the county can have it all, including this aquarium, as well as everything else to improve the county. The budget surplus they have after COVID is going to help fund this aquarium without requiring any additional taxes to be laid on the Onondaga County. It will also help restaurants as well as hotels by drawing in people, so it'll bring in more revenue for the county as well. Now they're also going to help the restaurants and the hotels as well, but he's proposing giving $750,000 grant that they could draw from to help improve their workforce, which would also bring in more people to hopefully have like conventions at the hotels, which again would go straight to the economy.
Now, Tyler, you said right off the bat, McMahon could have it all. So what else is he planning on spending this money on?
Yeah, so he also wants to spend money on the first ever housing development program in the county. There's a lot of housing crisis going on, and you want to take a look at what McMahon said. The $10,000 would be put towards the program. Take a look at what he said about what the money would be spent on.
I am proposing a $10 million fund to complement their efforts countywide. Okay. This will be targeted towards filling project gaps for affordable, mixed income, senior, market rate, and residential housing. The fund will help stabilize rising assessments, provide quality housing security for our vulnerable, and meet the demands of our growing community.
Yeah, so he also spent $100 million on sewer upgrades, and that's one of the main things in the budget as well. He announced a more aggressive approach on Wednesday, $600 million over the next 6 years to be put towards improving the sewers throughout the city. He's already put $100 million towards it, and part of this plan is to increase capacity of some of the sewers to lure in semiconductor manufacturing company. And take a look at what he said. The city has consolidated sewers, and here's what he said about the consolidation at the moment.
Strategic investments. It wouldn't be the state of the county if we didn't discuss our robust and historic investments into modernizing our sewers. A large component of this effort is the consolidation of our sewer districts. Currently, our team at WEP has almost finished the consolidation of the Baldwinsville-Seneca Knolls treatment service area and the Meadowbrook Limestone service area. This effort is not only a massive change in policy for the county, but represents an unprecedented commitment to investing in our sewer infrastructure.
Talking Points analyst Tyler O'Neill, thank you. Democrats in New York State are fighting over bail reform. The state passed legislation back in 2019 which got rid of cash bail for misdemeanors and some felonies.
Governor Kathy Hochul is looking to find a compromise between the two wings of her party. Talking Points analyst Oscar Offerman joins us now to discuss where New York Democrats are heading. Oscar, talk to us about the divide amongst Democrats on bail reform.
Yeah, so Governor Kathy Hochul's in a pretty tough spot here. She's got to manage both the liberal branch, the progressive branch of her party, and the moderate branch that wants to be a little bit tougher on crime. And one of those moderates is New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is he was elected on sort of this pro-police, anti-crime platform, and he was able to best out a ton of progressives in that New York City primary race. So for Governor Hochul, it's about towing that line. It really is a microcosm for the entire country in terms of where the Democrats are in the state of New York.
And Oscar, can the rise in crime, especially in New York City over the last few years, be tied to bail reform?
Well, it certainly is one of the factors, but I wouldn't say it's all of them. You know, we had a pandemic that was for the last 2 years. We had the George Floyd protests back in June and all of the violence that stemmed from that. So there was a significant rise of crime in 2020, and that extended into 2021, especially in New York City. And I would go so far as to say that it's one of a number of factors, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the only one.
And so, Oscar, we've talked about the New York State Democrats, but how are Republicans responding to this infighting?
Well, Republicans in New York State, they're at a disadvantage. There's not a lot of Republicans in New York State, especially compared to Democrats. The Republicans are looking for any advantage they can get. They are trying to tie Democrats to sort of this anti-police, I don't want to say pro-crime, but they're saying pro-crime platform. And they're making significant results. They've won a number of local races in Long Island, in the House there, in upstate New York as well. And you know, their gubernatorial candidate, the front runner right now, Lee Zeldin, he's going to run on sort of that pro-police platform.
All right, Oscar, and we'll have to see how these platforms turn out for the upcoming elections. Thank you. Coming up after the break, we discuss changes to New York City's vaccine mandate to allow exemptions for athletes. Stay with us.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner!
Go. Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. We're the family. Oh, I thought you were on my team. Wait, interesting.
Welcome back to Talking Points. New York City has changed its indoor vaccine mandate to allow exemptions for athletes and entertainers. The new rule means that athletes, including Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving, are now allowed to play home games. And Teagan Brown and Chilekasi Adele is back joining us now. Teagan, let's start with the NBA and what these new rules are going to have an impact on there.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things, like you said, was Kyrie Irving. Fans for months have been complaining that he hasn't been able to play at home, and he made his at-home debut last night because of the end of this mandate for athletes. And Mayor Adams said that this change wasn't due to lobbying from fans. It wasn't due to that. It was mostly due to the need for economic recovery for New York City.
And you know, Teagan, it's not just the NBA that has been a concern. Of course, the story of Kyrie Irving and the story of the NBA and New York's vaccine mandate has been the story kind of pretty much since it was enacted. But there were also some analysts who were talking about the possible baseball season as well. Spring training is going on in Florida right now, but within the next week, the Yankees and the Mets are going to be in New York City playing games, and that is something people have been talking about as well. It hasn't been a big topic per se of who's vaccinated, who's not, like Kyrie Irving on the Nets, but people have been worrying about the Mets and the Yankees as well.
And so another topic of concern about this is what this means for athletes and players in New York City. So while Eric Adams is saying that this whole point is to have the 9 million people in New York City be able to have a little bit more freedom and not have these vaccine lockdowns, what some people are saying, like New York City Hall's senior COVID advisor, Jay Varma, is saying that this could potentially be something where it's just those who are in power and that have money, like athletes and entertainers, don't have to follow the rules like many other people in New York City have to do.
And I know that one of the things that Mayor Adams said was he thought that it was unfair that these New York City-based players had to be vaccinated, but visiting players from other teams that were facing, teams like the Nets, they weren't required to be vaccinated because they weren't New York City-based.
And the other thing that's also interesting as well, I think over the course of the season, say this was a year ago, I think there's a lot of people who come out in New York City, maybe even across the country, who are more hardline against Eric Adams, trying to roll that back a little bit. But I think it goes to show where the country kind of has moved on COVID as well. And I think Eric Adams' decision reflects where the country has also moved.
And that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News.
Like us on Facebook. I'm Teagan Brown.
Have a great night, Syracuse.